Pokémon, the game we all know and love. Many of us grew up on this franchise but never realised the dark secrets that these games held. Yes, for a game aimed at children, Pokémon can be rather creepy at times. Now sit back and relax as I give to you 10 different facts/theories that tie in with the dark side of Pokémon. Let's begin. Number 10. What happens inside a Pokeball? There is some debate as to what happens to the Pokemon stored inside of a Pokeball, with fans divided over two different possibilities. While there is no definitive explanation as to the inner workings of a Pokeball, the two most popular explanations both have terrifying connotations. Some argue that when stored in a Pokeball, Pokemon are conscious and aware of time and space. This theory is supported by the fact that Pokemon respond to commands when they are in Pokeball form, such as when the Pokemon trainer throws the Pokeball into battle. This is unsettling to many, since this implies that Pokemon can be potentially imprisoned for all of eternity, aware of the outside world but powerless to escape. Just think of how many stored Pokemon you have, never to see the light of day. Since this theory is so unnerving, many have accepted the fact that Pokemon are unconscious or comatose when stored in a Pokeball. This may seem a little more humane, at least until you think it through for a little bit. For the most part, Pokemon rarely spend time outside of the Pokeball, except for when they are in battle. Yes, you will occasionally see the odd Pokemon hanging around with its trainer, but for the most part, Pokemon live in their Pokeballs. If they are unconscious, this means that they have no perception of life inside of the ball. All seems well until you realise that for some Pokemon, their entire lives will consist of an endless string of battles. Pokemon know no rest, no peace, no happiness, just fight after fight. Number 9. Have you ever wondered why some Pokemon only evolve through being traded? Well, some fans theorise that the reason they go through these evolutions could be caused by fear of abandonment, and that the Pokemon is trying to quickly improve so that their trainers will love them. Number 8. The diapered Pokemon Vullaby is labelled as a Dark-type Pokemon in the Pokédex. This may be due to the fact that it appears to be wearing a human skull. Number 7. Pokerus. Most players will have some vague knowledge in regards to the origin of Pokemon. Mentioned in passing, there are some hints dropped about how Pokemon have come from outer space. While somewhat correct, this is just the tip of the iceberg and reveals something far, far darker. Enter the Pokerus. It's a virus that spreads from Pokemon to Pokemon, increases their strength, and rapidly advances their growth. While this sounds like something of a non-canonical fanfiction, the Pokerus is a real thing. It has been an actual stat-altering gameplay element as far back as the 2nd generation. A lot of people have never heard of it because the infection is so rare. In fact, Bulbapedia states that a Pokemon has only a 3 in 65,536 chance to be infected. In-game, the Pokerus can be transmitted to other uninfected members of your party. And as far as the fiction is related, the Pokerus can apparently be transmitted to humans. Let's not wonder how this happens. The virus causes extreme growth and mutation, and is explained as the origin of Pokemon. Allegedly coming down from outer space, the Pokerus infected animals such as fish and birds, and mutated them into what we know as Pokemon. This explains why a majority of Pokemon resemble real animals, and don't forget, this is all canonical. So, knowing what the virus does to animals, what does it do to infected humans? Sooner or later, all of the humans will have the disease and freakishly mutate in a similar way as Pokemon. Some argue that it is already happening in children. This explains how kids are so damn smart and why they are strong enough to leave their home at a young age. Sooner or later, civilization will collapse and only human Pokemon hybrids will roam the world. Number 6. I'm sure that you've noticed the red lines on the muscles of Machoke's arms. Well, have you ever wondered what those lines are for? Machoke is literally bursting with muscle, and the red lines heavily imply that the muscles underneath Machoke's skin have torn apart. The Pokédex even supports this theory by stating that it requires a power-save belt to regulate its movements. Furthermore, the Pokemon Emerald entry states, "A belt is worn by Machoke to keep its overwhelming power under control. Because it is so dangerous, no one has ever removed the belt." Now it's quite obvious that the belt is crafted by humans. So what happens to Machokes born in the wild? If they didn't have the belt, would they eventually just explode into a massive torn flesh and bulging muscle? Who knows? Number 5. In episode 49 of the original Pokemon anime series, Ash's Pokédex mentions that the Pokemon Farfetch'd makes a tasty meal, and thus was almost hunted into extinction. This confirms that people in the Pokemon universe do in fact eat Pokemon. Number 4. This particular theory is quite possibly the spookiest one to date. Buried Alive was a trainer of whom was never programmed into the original Generation 1 games, but actually hidden inside of the game's data so that it's unreachable in normal play without hacking the game data to do so. Buried Alive was rumoured to have been originally set up as the final boss of Lavender Town's Pokemon Tower, instead of the ghostly Marowak. Talking to a gravestone which doesn't appear in the final versions of the game, on the top floor of Pokemon Tower has Buried Alive saying, "I'm trapped, and I'm lonely, so very lonely. Won't you join me?" And then the fight starts. His trainer sprite is of an undead corpse crawling from out the ground. Winning the battle would cause the game to freeze. The reason why the game crashes upon winning is because there was no programming for the game to continue after beating Buried Alive, so the game just hangs on a black screen. But upon losing the battle, Buried Alive would say, "Finally, raw meat." Then the music just stops, and a picture of your in-game character being devoured is shown with a large game over text at the bottom, while sounds of flesh being eaten plays in the background for 3 minutes. Number 3. Alakazam is a Pokemon of whom is said to have an IQ of 5,000. In several of its Pokédex entries, it states that Alakazam's brain cells multiply continually until it dies. Now if we take into account that the cranium is of limited size, there's only so much space that it can in fact hold, meaning that eventually Alakazam's brain will grow so big that it will ultimately explode. Number 2. Hiker Andy. Hiker Andy is seen in Pokemon Black and White versions during an event in Nimbasa City, in which you battle a trainer and ride the Ferris wheel with them, of whom change dependent on the season and gender of the player's character. Hiker Andy appears in the summer and only if you are a male. While riding the Ferris wheel with him, Andy is apparently coming onto the player's character, even asking if he has ever had a lover. In Pokemon Black and White 2 versions, Hiker Andy makes a reappearance, appearing in the autumn to a female character. He first states he is not interested in fighting a girl, and later tells of his lost love who he met 2 summers ago, obviously referring to the events in Black and White. And finally here we are at number 1. Some of you may remember back in my first Creepy Facts and Theories video when I talked a little bit about the disappearing ghost of a deceased young girl who sometimes appeared on the east side of Marvelous Bridge in Pokemon Black and White versions. Well, in Pokemon Black and White 2, we got some more information regarding her past and how she died. Introducing the Strange House. Once you near the end of the Strange House, you catch a glimpse of the girl from the bridge, crying out for her mother, father and her Abra. Then you enter the final room and find the Lunar Wing, upon which the girl reveals that she's been protecting. The description says the house is known for a sad incident that is said to keep people away. Given the fact that this all relates to the Lunar Wing and the dialogue, "In the dark dream, I heard my dad's voice. Forget about the Lunar Wing, please stay here with me." I think it goes without saying that Darkrai was the culprit, as the Lunar Wing is the only item known to dispel Darkrai's nightmares, and he's telling the girl to forget about it. That's right, the voice in her dream wasn't really her dad's, it was actually Darkrai, trying to bind her in the dream forever until she died. Now if we look at Darkrai's Black and White and Black and White 2 Pokédex entries, they all say, to protect itself, it afflicts those around it with nightmares, however, it means no harm. Keep in mind that the games that this particular event takes place are in fact the Black and White games, meaning that Darkrai probably had no intention of killing the girl, but was just instead lonely, so he forced the girl to stay there with him, which ultimately killed her. As usual guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Apologies for not putting out a Facts and Theories video sooner, but you know, here it is. And be sure to comment, rate and subscribe if you did in fact like the video, and have a spooky Halloween.